Hello fellow survivors, and welcome to a chat about the meaning of life and the long dark, kind of. I'm sitting here with a cup of coffee. You should grab one too, because we're going to be sitting here and just chatting a little bit about the long dark survival game and some of the philosophy behind how you play it, although there is no right way to play this game. This is going to be more of a podcasty episode like I did before. Feel free to sit down and have this in the background or listen to it some other way, because there won't be much editing in this one. It's pretty much a podcast. I did one of these already called The Current State of the Game, where I talked about different things in the long dark going on currently. And the reception for that video was almost universally positive. People really liked it. So I decided to do another one of that. If you are listening and for some reason don't know what the long dark is, then you're in luck, because you should try it and you'll have a blast. It's a great game. It's a winter survival game where you play in an abandoned winter landscape, trying to survive and just conquering the world. And that's pretty much it. It's a great game. Absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10 or 9.9 out of 10 or something like that. And here, today, we're going to talk about surviving long-term in the long dark. And we're not going to talk about how you achieve it, but rather how your mental state deals with it and what you do in the long dark. Because what do you do in the long dark? The long dark is unique in that it has no goals or anything like that. There is an exception with the tails system, but other than that, you are free to do whatever you want in the long dark, and you can play it however you want. You can play it on any difficulty you want. You can go wherever you want. You can be without mods or with mods and add things or whatever. You can play it custom. You can have self-imposed rules. You can just approach the game however you want to play it, really. So what do you do in it then? Well, most people find some sort of satisfaction in it, but the real rift happens when people survive long term. So in the long dark, when you play survival mode, it is theoretically possible to survive forever. I made a video a little while back about the longest survival runs in the world in long dark, and there's been a couple over 10,000 days on Interloper, which is really, really long. One of those players, Even Dark, continued his run using the time capsule after the DLC was released, and he continued, and I think he reached 20,000 days before he now is playing Misery, where he's already up to 500 days, I think. So it is possible to survive a really long time, and we're not talking about realism here, like, yeah, the character would be dying of old age at some point, but that's not really relevant. In theory, you could survive just forever and forever. But that's not really the issue. It's not really how you survive forever or what you can. It's whether you are mentally able to do so, because a lot of people find it hard to know what to do in the game when they reach a certain point. And this is really a point that separates the different types of players that the long dark has. For some people that play the game have they need kind of like creative input, they need a direction, and other people don't. There's kind of two types of long-term players in the long dark. And the thing about it is that when you go into a survival run, there is no immediate goal in the long dark, and you just sort of do what you want to do, but you have to survive. The only goal really is to survive. You have to make a plan and get resources and establish some sense of stability. So it doesn't really matter what difficulty you play. If you play an Interloper, the plan is a little bit more shared among players, in the sense that in order to survive long-term in Interloper, you really should go and get like a hammer and forge and make a bow and arrow and, you know, that sort of thing. Even though in theory you don't have to, but that would make it a lot easier. So the beginning, the early days of Interloper is more similar across playstyles, but in lower difficulties it can vary a lot more because of the guns in the game. But when you reach the late game, the differences between the difficulties kind of disappear. Because if you're talking about hundreds of days of survival, sure, on Voyager there'll be less predators than on Interloper and more prey animals, and also you have guns and more gear, but you're still generally speaking doing the same thing to survive long term. You have to have a base, you have to have shelter, you have to get wood, you have to get food, you have to get water. With the exception of Misery mode, you can hunt and store tons of food to have it in each base and that sort of thing. So you're setting up a storage solution really, and just getting as many resources as possible. And there is enough renewable stuff in the Long Dark, especially if you include beachcombing, that you can just survive forever. But the question, as I said, is not whether you survive forever, it's what you do with your time, if that's going to be your goal. Especially for those who want to achieve the 500 days survived achievement that you have, or trophy if you're on a PlayStation or Xbox, because that's something you need to survive 500 days on any difficulty to get that achievement. And a lot of people in general will struggle to even achieve that as a mechanical issue, like they just aren't good enough to survive that long. They find playing on Pilgrim too boring to survive 500 days, and playing on, say, Stalker or something is too challenging. So those players, for them, it's more a matter of time in terms of they have to just figure out how the game works and then get better at it, and then they'll survive. But for those who have more or less figured the game out, they feel that they can survive 500 days, but they just don't have really the patience for it, or they don't feel like there's a direction for them to survive that long. And by the way, generally speaking, going forward, when I say people like they or something, I'm using a general term here because I'm basing this on the fact that, well, I've been in this community. I've been in the Long Dark community for 7 years now. I've been almost since the beginning, not quite. And I am very well informed and active on things like the Long Dark Facebook groups, Reddit, the Hinterland forums, as well as the Long Dark Discord. So there's a general impression you get about the game. And two things that come up very often in discussion is what should be added to the game. People have extremely different opinions on what should be added to the game. And the other one is, what do I do? Because I don't have a direction. So some people, when they try the Long Dark, it's just not for them, because they really want some sort of quest line or guide saying, go there, do this, do that. But most of the long-term players, they don't really care about that, because there isn't any sense of direction in the Long Dark. So the issue that people often find is that once they've got everything, they don't know what to do. So let's say they're playing and then they get all the best gear, they hunt all the animals they need, they craft all the best gear, and at some point they've established a base, they have water, they have food, they have all the resources they need, they have the best gear, and then they think, what do I do now, right? I've sort of collected everything there is to do, I've hunted everything there is to hunt, and I've crafted everything there is to craft, so I guess the game is over now. And I've even seen some suggestions, some people wish there was an optional end game to survival, where maybe there was a rare item you had to craft, sort of similar to Subnautica, where you could treat Subnautica as a survival run, where you survive forever. But there is an actual end game. You have to build a spaceship or whatever to get out of the planet. And some people wish that that was the case for the Long Dark. But I feel like if that was the case, then you would just go for that. And then it would become more linear. It would have a conclusion to it, even if it was optional. And I don't really like that. So I'm in the camp of the other sort of player, the sort of player that could stay in the Long Dark forever. I feel like there's a never-ending list of things to do in the Long Dark, that you can always do something. You can always find something to do, and you'll never be bored. But that has to do with two things. One is that there's always sort of chores to do in the game. But the other thing is how you feel mentally about the Long Dark, and whether the Long Dark to you is just something casually you do, or if it's something that is kind of like a mental escape for you. Because if it is the latter, then you are more immersed into it, and it becomes a place they don't really want to leave. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and the meaning of life to it. So one of the reasons I thought I'd make this video is I came across a video that sort of inspired it. And I've been meaning to make a video like this for a long time anyway, and I am going to make some other similar videos like this. I have a video in mind about what I would change in the Long Dark if I could. And before I get into that, I said many times before, I don't think Long Dark needs changing at all. I think it's a fantastic game. I think before the DLC came out, it was also a fantastic game. And pretty much everything they added in the DLC, maybe one or two exceptions, it's all been really, really good stuff. So I think The Long Dark is a fantastic game. It doesn't need more stuff at all. Sure, some polishing here and there is great, but it's a fantastic game. It doesn't really need anything, and it hasn't really needed anything for a long time. And that's me. But if you force me to say, well, what I changed, and I have a little list of mostly quality of life things that I would like to change, but that's for a different video. However, this discussion on what to do in The Long Dark and what to add to it is something that's been going on for a long time. By far, the most common discussion is what would you add to the game if you could, and especially on Reddit, it pops up every week or so. Someone asks this question, and people have all sorts of different opinions. You know, oh, I want to add the shotgun, it's pretty common. The cougar was very common before it was actually added and removed. Then there's things like more animals or more or less crafting, or I would like to tidy my base, or I like to build a base, I want nuclear weapons. One of the funniest ones I saw was in one of my videos, someone commented that they wished that there was a reward, which should be a red-headed Canadian woman when you reach 500 days. So yeah, people, someone even said that they wanted nuclear weapons in it. So yeah, people got very different opinions on this stuff, and I don't think all of them are genuine, but that doesn't matter. However, I came across this video by a YouTuber called New Memphis, which I would recommend you check out. I'll put the video link in the description. It's a good video, and this video I'm making now is not a response to what he's saying, but it sort of pushed me to, like, you know, I guess I should make this video or podcast now. And in New Memphis's video, he talks about The Long Dark and how great it is, but he also says that the biggest issue in The Long Dark is that you don't have anything to do. And he said the game really needs to evolve and add things for the player to do in the game. He basically says, in a nutshell, the game is fantastic, it's well made, it's really fun to play, but you need more things to do in the game. That's a TLDR of what he said, but I recommend you watching his own video on the topic. It's a very good video. I disagree with a lot of what he says, but that's not really relevant. It's a good video, and people are entitled to their opinions. And this issue that he raised about what there is to do in The Long Dark has been talked about many times in the forums over the years, and it's not anything new, and people often feel that way. And this is really a common question I get on my videos too, when I make tutorials on how to survive in The Long Dark, including the long game, because I have a video on late games and long-term survival. People often ask, like, yeah, right, okay, but what do I do when I get to the late game? I don't know what to do. I just wake up and, like, I guess I can hunt. Like, I don't know what to do. And this is where we get into the philosophy of this. This is when it gets deep and mysterious, and we have a talk about the meaning of life. Because what you need to do in The Long Dark, what do you do in The Long Dark long term? The answer to this question depends on your personal philosophy of life and your own marriage to this game. Because in many ways, The Long Dark is a mirror of real life. Because if you think about it, you don't have a guide in real life either. Do you? Do you really have a quest line? There might be pressures around you saying you need to do this, you need to get an education, you need to get married, you need to get a job, and so on. But those are loose things. It's not written anywhere exactly what you need to do. And The Long Dark is the same. It's one of the few games that are the same. There is no guide. There is no goal. The game continues as long as you survive. And that's the same with life. Life continues as long as you survive. You know, just like evolution, it just continues by people being alive and then procreating. And in The Long Dark, you obviously don't do that latter part. But it's a kind of reflection of real life. Like, if you in real life got stranded in Canada and it's a quiet apocalypse, everyone is dead, everything is abandoned, it's just you, the winter, and the animals, what would you do? Well, you'd probably do the same thing. You would try and survive, you would do your best, and you would just do it day by day. And maybe one day you wake up and say, hey, I got a good cabin here. I got wood, got food, got water. What do I do now? And you just do stuff. You know, you might, of course, if the endless possibilities, yeah, you might read some more books or write a book or learn how to sew or build more cabins, or who knows what you would do. But the point is that you would decide what to do because no one else would. And in the long dark, it's the same. There is no one to tell you what to do. There are necessities to meet. You can't get hungry and tired and thirsty and so on. You don't want to get killed by a wolf. But those are really necessities. They're not goals. The only goal indirectly is to survive. What you do with it is really up to you. And that's how it is a bit with life. You know, the meaning of life. The meaning of life, the answer to what is the meaning of life depends on each person, right? So some people will have a very religious answer. They'll say, oh, God put me here, or the meaning of life is this, and so on. Some people have a more biological thing. They say that, well, the meaning of life is to reproduce and have children, right? Because that's evolution, say. It's like, no, the evolution doesn't give you the meaning of life. It gives you an explanation of how life got there. That's what evolution is. It doesn't give you any meaning. It gives you context. And same with religion. It can give you an answer, but it may not be your answer. I always felt that the meaning of life is whatever meaning you ascribe to it. For some people, their meaning of life is to achieve a family and have children. For other people, it's their work and their legacy. And other people, it's just being happy. And for some people, it's to save the world. You know, people have very different opinions about what life is, what it should be, and what the meaning of life is as well. And the thing is ultimately that the meaning of life is a human question that requires a human answer. There is no absolute answer to this question. You can find answers from a book or from your church or from your parents, or from me, if I'm going to give you one, but none of them are more correct than the other. And when you play the long dark, you have to ask yourself, what is the meaning of life? Because what is the meaning of the run? And it's the same, because you are pretty much just existing, and you have to find some satisfaction in that, because this is life now. And there is a lot of serenity in the long dark that you don't have in real life. So in real life, you have other burdens. You have peer pressure, and you have societal pressure, and you need to get a job and a degree and maybe family, and you need to satisfy people around you and leave a footprint and change the world, or, you know, get off the couch or whatever, right? Here in the long dark, you have necessities like food and water, right? Basic stuff in the Maslow pyramid of necessities. But other than that, you don't have those pressures. You don't have other people. And in a way, then, the long dark becomes this sanctuary. It becomes a refuge where you can do whatever you want to do, free from life's pressures and social constructs and society and people telling you what to do. There is no longer anyone telling you what to do. There is a game interface that tells you if you don't eat, you're going to die. But other than that, there is no actual input. So you can do whatever you want to do. And that means that you have complete freedom when you play the long dark to do whatever you want. And I think that freedom also scares people a little bit. They're not used to it. They need direction. And they feel like, I don't know what to do unless I'm told what to do. But in reality is that it gives you complete freedom. And that to me makes me very calm. It makes me really relaxed. And it makes the long dark a second home, right? The long dark is free, a home and freedom in a game in the harshest way possible, because you're in a winter apocalypse, but it's home somehow. So the only exception to this is the Tails system, but we'll get to that later. So when I play the long dark, I feel like there's never enough things to do. I always go in my journal and I write a list of things to do. And some of the basic stuff is to make a base in every region. And that's a tactical thing, because if you have a base in every region, which has food, water, and some basic supplies, matches, medicine, and some repair stuff, then you can travel very easily throughout the world. You can go from region 1 to region 2, and you know there'll be resources when you get there. You kill the bear in every region or whatever, there's bear meat there. It's ruined, but I got cooking level 5, so I'm immune to it anyway, and is waiting for you. So if you have that in every region, you can easily travel between regions and always be secure when you get there. If you bump into a wolf or bear on the way and you get mauled, doesn't matter. You get to the base, you heal up, you're fine. So having a regional base in every region is a great advantage in the long run. It does require maintenance if you leave clothing and stuff there. But other than that, it's not a big deal. And doing that on its own is a huge endeavor, because if every region you have to go, you have to loot the region, you have to find someone to put up a base, and then you have to hunt animals, and you have to get pelts and water and guts and food. Maybe you want to put some gear around there as well. This could easily take dozens of days in each region, and there's a lot of regions in the Long Dark. So just that alone is going to take a couple 100 days probably. So that's a huge thing as well. But let's say you manage to do all of that stuff. Well, then it's just other things you can try testing some stuff out. I wonder how this works, and you can try experimenting with things within reason so you don't die, of course. You can do practice with aiming. You can go on and see if you can try and track how often the moose respawns. You can do some fishing. You can make blizzard trails. You know, some people do that, like especially on Coastal Highway and Mystery Lake or Forsaken Airfield if you really want to do it. Where if there's a blizzard, you get lost very quickly, but you can put like tinder or something on the ground, and then you can make trails so you can actually see the path back to base, that sort of thing. You can do the same with spray paint, for example. There's always something to do. So I find myself, even if I've done everything, then I just fancy, here's really the kicker, right? I just fancy being in the world, and that's enough. You don't need something to do. Sure, you want to set up the main base, you want to set up regional bases, have supplies and all that stuff, and then you can find bits and bobs to do, like, oh, I'm going to try this out, I'm going to try surviving 50 days in each region to learn, I'm going to figure out the maps, I'm going to try this out. You can make all these goals for yourself, things for you to do, but in principle you don't need them. Because what you enjoy, or what I enjoy, is just being in the world. So I could hop in and just say, you know what, I fancy going to Hashra Valley today. I haven't been in a while. There's a couple areas that I don't know that well. Let's see if I can rediscover them or something. And sometimes there's when you survive a long time, you even get this sense of rediscovery. And it's amazing. Like, you're like, you know, I haven't been to Himmelf Mountain in like 200 days. And you go there and like, oh, here's that thing that I left behind. That's where that got to. And it's almost as if you are finding clues of who's been there before. But the person who's been there before is you, right? Because the world is so big. Like, the Long Arc is massive. It's way bigger than Skyrim. It's gone way beyond it. There was a post by Raph where he said how big it is lately. How much is it? It's like 70 square kilometers or something. It's huge. Like, if you decide to just walk from Desolation Point to, say, Sundered Pass, right? If you're walking, no running, just walking, and that's probably, it's gonna, assuming that if you don't have to stop and eat, I think that's gonna take you well over an hour to do that, but maybe even longer than an hour, maybe 2 hours just to walk. And that's ignoring the fact that you need to stop and eat, and there's fighting wolves and all that stuff. It's going to take you a while. It's a very, very big game. And if you like the world, then you will like being in the world. And when I go in the Long Dark, it's just beautiful. Because there's some immersion to it. You just go there and you're in this world, and it's cold and hostile, but it's not scary, right? There's no monsters in it. There's no superhuman stuff. Obviously there's paranormal things with the Aurora and all that stuff, but there's no, there's no oogly monsters and slimes and aliens and things. It's just you and the world. you in Canada. And there is some tranquility in this. There's this sense of tranquility that's very hard to explain when you come out of your building and it's a beautiful sunny day and there's deer walking about and there's no wind and you can hear the crows, and then you walk and you hear the crunching of the snow under your boots, and you equip the bow just in case, click clink, and you just walk about, and it's peaceful, it's quiet, it's relaxing. The only exception is when you walk around and suddenly you hear woof woof, oh damn, there's a wolf, you know. But an experienced player will know when that's going to happen, so that is very rare. But there is this serenity to it. It's really relaxing, and that makes it for me enjoyable to just be around. I always have a contingency in my head that I need to be near somewhere that has food and water and shelter, or I have the means to procure those things in some way so that I survive. But other than that, I can pretty much do whatever I want, especially on lower difficulties, because on lower difficulties the world is so warm that if you have to get enough gear you can just walk about. On Interlope it's a little bit harder, you have to maintain warmth. Misery is even worse, but you can still go out, and it's just really nice to just be able to go out and be immersed into this world, because it's not an escape from other things necessarily. For example, in my real life, I work full-time in academia, which is a very tough job, but it's also very rewarding, and I have a family as well, so my playtime is reduced. Like, I might have a couple hours each evening where I can do something, and some days I might play The Long Dark, other days I do something else. So I only really play a few hours a week, if that. But it's not like I then use The Long Dark as a way to escape from my duties or anything like that. You know, I might play with the baby monitor on or something like that. It's more that it relaxes the mind, and it makes it very tranquil walking about. There's something about this game that you can just be in it. You can just be in the Long Dark, and it's really relaxing. It's really tranquil. There's very little stress in it, and it's very beautiful as well. Like the weather system is phenomenal. So a sunny day is one thing, but you also get beautiful auroras, you get these gorgeous sunsets, and sunrises too. It's just a very nice place to be. Despite the hostile weather and the dangerous wildlife, it's a very nice place to be. Just walking about, you know. And then when something happens, a blizzard happens, or a sudden bear or something, yeah, you gotta deal with it. And that's kind of the fun part as well. There's a challenge to it, but you don't really need that. I would be happy on Pilgrim just walking about too. The reason I don't is just because I like the extra challenge of things being a bit harder. But this is also the reason why I really like Interloper as a difficulty, and more so than Misery and other difficulties. So Misery is relatively new, and I was one of the play testers for Misery, and I really like how it turned out. It's a great mode, but the problem with Misery in terms of the tranquilness of the game is the no health regeneration. So prior to the addition of Misery, you had custom difficulties like no one gets out alive and Dead Man and As Dead Sleep. You had these other modes where there was no health regeneration or very little of it. And some people really liked this mode. They thought it was fantastic to play something really difficult, something really challenging. And for some people, the way they approach the Long Dark is to play it the hardest way they can, as challenging as possible. That's their drive, and that's fine. Some people are the opposite. They want to play as easy as possible, super Pilgrim, just chill out, and both of them are fine. As I said many times, there's no wrong or right way to play this game. You can play however you want to. You can play the hardest difficulty, the lowest. You can play one region only, explore everything. You can have custom rules for yourself. Oh, in this run I'm not allowed to use torches. You do whatever you want. You can use online maps or mods. You can use cheesy tactics or exploits or not. It doesn't matter. You play it however you want to play it. And no one can tell you that you're playing this game wrong, because there is no such thing with this game. However, the reason I prefer Interloper to Misery and other custom games is because of the ability to explore. So on Interloper, the world is really cold, but you can still explore. So you can go around and discover things, and you can explore. It's a bit challenging because the world might get very cold or something like that, but you'll be okay, even if you take some damage and whatnot. Once you're done exploring, you can go and heal and have a sleep and just build up your strength again, and then you go back out there, right? On lower difficulties, it's even easier because you can heal much more and the world is warmer. On Interloper, it's cold enough that it's a challenge and the world is challenging, but you can recover from that. On Misery, that's not the case, particularly in the late game, because if you are in a mode where you have permanent health loss, then you are being penalized for exploring, because the world is so cold. You have to constantly build fires and that sort of thing to maintain your warmth, so you don't lose any health, which means that when you want to travel in Misery mode, you have to do a lot of upkeep to make sure you stay warm. Otherwise you're going to slowly die and eventually just run out and you just die, which means there's very little wiggle room for exploring. On Interloper, however, it's like a lighter version of Misery, and you can recover health. How much you recover is limited, but you still recover, which means that you can go out. So if I want to go out in Interloper and say, hey, I haven't been to this corner of the map in ages. I don't even remember what's in the northwest corner of Pleasant Valley. Let's go and check it out. Oh, it's getting cold. So what? It's a nice day. Let's just keep going. And then you end up at half health, but then you just go home to the cabin afterwards, eat some food and heal up, and you're good to go. So you get to explore. And on lower difficulties, the cold isn't really an issue because it's so warm and you got even better gear than Interloper. So there you can just do it forever. But in Interloper, there's enough of a challenge that they got to keep you on your toes, but you still have the room to explore. And that's the thing, that I feel like you never run out of things to do, because there's always something to explore. Even if you know all of the maps, there are a load of little areas in the game that you've never been to, edges of the maps. And even if you have been there so long ago, I played this game for 7 years, and some of the people ask me, hey, where's Maple in Mystery Lake? And I'm like, oh, there should be one there and one there. And I don't remember exactly, but they're kind of like near the edges. I deliberately don't learn the loot tables. On Interloper, there's loot tables, so you can learn exactly where different items are. There's 4 different options for each run, precisely where tools can be. And I don't know them because I enjoy just going out and exploring. I have a general idea where they're going to be based on experience, and on the odd exception I looked something up. But it's just nice to go out and explore. And I like that. I really like that. But you can look up the loot tables and you can know where everything is. But the point is that there's always something to do. You always have an incentive to go and explore. There's parts of the map that you definitely don't know. Try and explore those. And even if you explore everything, you can re-explore because you'll forget because the map is so big. And then you got to maintain your bases. And then even after you've done all that, you can maybe make more clothing somewhere else. You can make trails. You can just get more resources for yourself. You can practice hunting bears. You can do beach combing to see what treasures wash up. There's so much stuff to do all the time that just upkeep alone keeps you so busy that you'll never run out of stuff. And I don't think I've ever logged into the Long Dark and thought, what should I do now? If that's how I feel, I don't log in to begin with. But once I'm in the game, it's so immersive, this game. There's something about it. I think a lot of it has to do with the design of the game. Because the design of the game, sometimes you get the odd comment, people saying, oh, the graphics are terrible. It's like, no, they're not. This is an artsy game. they use a watercolor based kind of style. So it's almost like a painting, and that's actually one of the words they've used is painterly. It's almost like a painting. It's a very beautiful game to look at. So the aesthetics of the game is great, and the sound design is great. Like there's a lot of ambient noise. If you just go out pretty much anywhere in the Long Dark, then you just stand there. Just stand there and take a moment. It's the most relaxing thing ever, unless you're getting eaten by a wolf. You'll hear all sorts of little things. You'll hear birds, you'll hear the wind, you'll hear a twig snap, you know. Even if you go inside something like the dam, you'll hear all sorts of like clunk, 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 clunk noises, the metal creaking, you know, little sparks of electricity. There's so much ambience in this game that it immerses you, it envelops you into the game. And I'm getting like goosebumps just thinking about it. That's how good this game is. And it's the only game that I know that does that. The visual design of the game and the audio of the game makes it incredibly immersive, so that when you play it, it's you are in that world. Especially if you use a headset, then it's very immersive. And for me, then, it doesn't matter if you're surviving 100 days or 100,000 games, because you don't need anything to do, because you are already in the world, right? And that is and you have to create your meaning of life in that world. What is my meaning of life in the Long Dark? If it is just to exist, then you just do that. You just get resources and stay alive. But you can just do whatever you want. It really mirrors reality in the sense that if you were standing there wouldn't be any directions on what to do. You would just do whatever. You would go from day to day and say, today I'm doing this, today I'm doing that, or whatever. You would just do whatever you want to do. There isn't a straightforward answer to it, because there isn't one to life either. In real life, there is no meaning of life other than your own. Only you can decide what your meaning of life is. And in the Long Dark it's the same. The meaning of life in the Long Dark is whatever you want it to be. And you gotta decide. You can just build a base, or get more stuff, or explore, or enjoy it, or maybe try and catch, you know, an aurora, get all the buffer memories, get all the cans, you know, spend 50 days in each region. Or you could just go out and hang out, you know. I sometimes go in the Long Dark and I don't do anything specifically. I just thought, let's go over here today, you know. Oh, there's a wolf. I guess I'll kill it. It's in my way. I'm running out of water. I'll make some fire over here. And you just kind of wing it. You're kind of going on holiday. You don't need a goal, because you are integrated into the world already. And for me, I find it so immersive that it creates this aura of tranquility that I can do anything and I'll enjoy it. I don't need a direction. And in fact, having a direction would take away the immersion for me. Then it would be like, oh, but I really got to go do this thing, I guess. You know, the game is telling me to go do this, but I kind of want to do something else, or nothing at all. You know, like some days you wake up and maybe it's Saturday or something, and maybe you have time, you know, if you have kids, and that's not a thing anymore, I guess. But you wake up and you just think to yourself, today I'm going to do nothing. I just don't want to do anything. I'm going to sleep in and have a late breakfast, and I'm just going to maybe watch some TV, maybe, and I don't know. I'll just do whatever I fancy, and then I'll go to bed. You just want to do that. And the Long Dark's the same. You just wake up. And if you keep yourself busy, just like you would in real life, then there's always stuff to do. You know, in real life it's the same. People who keep themselves busy often don't have time to think about the moments, because they're too busy maintaining life to think about life. And in the Long Dark's the same. If you keep all your time maintaining your bases and that sort of thing, you don't have time to think about what you should do. And that will be fine too. That's a way to be productive all the time. The other way is to just appreciate the game. Those of you who have seen me play this for a while, I will notice that I all the time stop and take a moment in this game, particularly when the weather's nice, you get a nice sunset or something. I just stop and just look at it. And sometimes I just go quiet, like the video goes quiet for like 20 seconds because I just like spaced out, just enjoying the moment. And I think that's what The Long Dark is a lot about. It's about appreciating the moments in the game where there isn't anything going on. It's just a directionless game, and that means that your possibilities are infinite because you can do whatever you want. So what is the meaning of life in The Long Dark? It is whatever you want it to be. You can stick to... I can give you examples of what to do, but you don't have to do any of those things. You can stick in one region, you can make trails, you can do the tales, you can establish bases, you can find all the cairns, all the buffer memories, you can make a perfect map. That's something I like to do. Make a perfect map. You need tons of charcoal for that, but you can do it. There's all sorts of things to do in The Long Dark, but you don't need to do any of them. You know, if The Long Dark for me was that I was in Coastal Highway, well, actually, let me rephrase that I was in Desolation Point. Because in my Stalker series, I was like 20 or 25 days in Desolation Point in a row when I spawned there. But let's say I'm in Desolation Point and I got my bow, I got some gear and wood and matches and stuff. Let's just hang out in Desolation Point for 100 days. That sounds great to me. That sounds really great. Because let's take Desolation Point as an example. It's a really small region, really small. But it has a moose, has a bear, has some wolves. Let's say day one, kill the bear, and I harvest it, cook it. Maybe I need another day to recover and I want sleep. Next day I kill the moose, same thing. And let's say we're up to day 4 now, maybe day 5. And then there's quite a few wolves around. Let's just kill all of them just to cull the wolves and be safe. There's some deer around too. There's ice fishing. There's ptarmigans and rabbits. There's coal to be collected. But let's say you do all that stuff and, you know, the bear and moose are going to take a few dozen days to come back. And then you're kind of like, well, what do I do now? I guess I can go kill some more wolves or something. Deer hasn't respawned yet. You know, I don't care. I will just go out and walk. Let's see what beachcombing has washed up today. Let's see. Well, there's some birch bark here today. Oh, some wood. Cool. This one. Oh, tin of sardines. How nice. You know, okay, let's keep going. And then I just see... oh, I wonder if you can walk up here. Oh, yeah, I suppose you can. Let's see if I can improve my goating a little bit. Has the coal respawned? No, it doesn't look like it. That's all right then. Oh, it's a blizzard. Let's find someone and just wait it out. And then you go back. Oh, day's over. Oh, let's see what we do next day. And I will be okay just walking about. You know, when I played on Stalker and I reached in and I was there for 20, 25 days, where it was, I decided to leave just to do something different and also get the backpack in Ash Canyon. But I did feel like I could just stay here. It's so great to just hang out there. It's like a little holiday resort. It's quite small. There's some threats, but not many. And you can just do whatever you want to do. And if The Long Dark was just Desolation Point for me, I would still be happy. I would be less happy because there's less to explore. But it's just nice to just choose somewhere to sit down and just take a moment. And I especially like The Long Dark when I have the opportunity to immerse myself for long periods of time. That's very rare these days because of work and family. I tend to play like 1 to 2 hours at a time. But sometimes on rare occasions when something's happening and I just have more time, or before I had children, then sometimes, you know, I could play for hours and then you get really invested in the run. You feel like you're there from day one and so on. But then when you have longer breaks, then you come back and like, what was I doing again? And you got it. That's why the journal is handy. It tells you what you were doing. Because from the game's point of view, if you've been absent for 2 weeks, from the game's point of view, you just left for 10 seconds, you know. So yeah, we could keep talking about this, but ultimately, I'm just reiterating the same point. So what do you do in The Long Dark is you really just have to have... If you're one of those players who feel like, I can't play this game for too long, I stop after day 100 because I run out of things to do, then first of all, you have to know that it's perfectly okay to do that. If you feel like I can't be bothered to play past day 100, so I just restart the game, and I think it's fun to restart, well then that's fine. Like I said, there's no wrong way to do this. So if you really enjoy the early stage and you can't be bothered to like do stuff after a certain stage, and so what? Just do that. No one can tell you you're doing it wrong, because you're not. But if you're someone who would like to play longer, you want to get to say at least 500 days because of the achievement, if nothing else, but you just can't push yourself past day 100 or maybe 200, but then you're done. Then you just got to do a mental check, really. You just got to ask yourself, what do I get out of the long dark when I go into it? And if you feel like the only thing you want to do is have certain directions and that sort of stuff, then you have to make them yourself. And that's the only way to keep yourself going. You have to be your own dungeon master. You have to be your own game master. You have to set your own goals and sit down and make a long list of things to do. Long list, 20 things that you want to do in the long dark. And they could be things like get 100 sticks for each base, check out every corner, survive 10 days in each region, check out all the connector regions, all that stuff. Surviving 50 days in each region is a great one, because then you learn those regions. And before you know it, you'll have a very long list of things to do, and I guarantee you will not be able to do all of them by the time you get to 500 days, because there'll be too much to do, too much maintenance, particularly on the higher difficulties. But in addition to that, you need to give yourself a little check and think, why do I like this game? When I play it, what do I like about it? Is it the hunting part, or is it the exploration part, or is it both? And you gotta invest some mental energy into this game. You gotta invest some of your brain into the tranquility of it, and just accept that in this game no one can tell me what to do, which means that I have to tell myself what to do. I don't necessarily have to have a plan, I can just do it. And you can change plan. Those of you who watch my series knows I change all the time. Sometimes I try to create a long-term plan and I tell my viewers about it so the viewers know where I'm going. I'll say things like, okay, next time we're going to go get this hammer, probably be over here, and then we'll go back, and then we'll go and forge and do this. The next episode happens, like, oh, the hammer wasn't there, and also I killed the moose. Okay, change the plan, we're going to house this moose, drag it back to base, and then we'll go and look for the hammer again, and if it's not there, we'll go and kill this bear, and then this happens, but then an aurora hit, and I got mauled, and now I'm bleeding. Okay, change the plan. And then, plans change all the time, and that's also interesting in and of itself, isn't it? But at the end of the day, I feel like The Long Dark is really one of those games where it provides a very rare answer to the meaning of life, in the sense that the answer is wherever you choose it to be. What is the meaning of life? It's whatever you want it to be. You choose. I have my meaning of life and you have yours. And in The Long Dark, it's the same. You go in and say, why am I playing this game? What do I like about it? What do I want to do? What is the point of surviving in The Long Dark? What's the point? There is no point. There is no point in surviving in The Long Dark. It's completely arbitrary. It's a video game. And you don't get a pat on the back. Sure, you survived 500 days. You get an achievement at one time. Yeah, great. Reinforce that. Other than that, there's nothing. It's just your own personal satisfaction of being in the world. That's your reward. You just like being in it. If you don't like being in it, then you're probably playing the game for a different reason, I guess. But yeah, the meaning of The Long Dark is nothing. There is no meaning. There is no goal. There is no hierarching order. There is no directive. There is no meaning to it at all. It's literally just surviving. Even on misery mode, which was initially designed to kill you, it was designed with the intent that you would die, and you're going to die probably pre-day 100. Even that can be conquered to live indefinitely, but even there is no goal, because the goal there really is to kill you, but if you survive, then yeah, you've beaten that one. But yeah, I just can't reiterate it enough that there is a pointlessness to The Long Dark, and that pointlessness gives you freedom to do whatever you want, because the meaning of the game is your meaning. You can do whatever you want to do within the confines of the game, and you can apply it however you want as well. You can create stories about it if you want. Ultimately, it provides tremendous freedom, and I think some people just don't know what to do with that freedom. But at the end of the day, it's really just you who can decide what to do. And if you like being in the world, if you appreciate the world of the Long Dark, then you will never get tired of playing the game, even if you're on day 20,000, because it's just so nice to be in the world, to hear the sounds around you, to see the aurora, and there's a little bit of tension because the wolves are around. Maybe you killed something you smell and they're coming for you. The bear is in your way and that's making you scared, and you really got to get this shot in or it's going to be annoying because the bear might maul you or it'll run away and you got to find it. And you just maintaining your day-to-day routine is in itself an experience. It's the only game I can think of where doing a chore is actually really fun because it's just so immersive. And I think also a massive aspect of it is the loneliness of it. Very many people really want NPCs in this game. We are getting the trailer eventually, but the whole point of the Long Dark is its isolation. That you are alone with your thoughts and just you deciding what to do. There's no one else. And it's just you. And some people hate that. Some people hate being alone. In real life, some people are also like that. They dread that social separation. Some people are like, when they have a breakup, they are filled with anxiety because they think they can't stand the thought of being alone. They have to have someone in their lives, you know. Some people are like that. Some people just can't go without social interaction. If they meet someone and they say bye, they immediately take up their phone and they call some of their friends. It's to be constantly socially reinforced, especially extroverts. Well, some of the opposite, introvert, they want to have some space, be some time for yourself. And I wouldn't be too surprised if, generally speaking, more introverts play the Long Dark than extroverts. But we need to collect data on that. Maybe a survey one day, hey? So that's a whole nother thing. There's a loneliness to this game, and some people don't really like that because then they're alone with their thoughts. There are some people also who just don't like thinking. Some people say, "Oh, I hate the quiet because it makes me think, and I hate thinking." And you know, that's also a whole other thing. When in the Long Dark, you are left with your thoughts in a way, because even if you are doing things all the time, then you still sometimes have to travel in the quiet. You say to yourself, I have to go from point A to B to hunt the moose or a deer. And then it's still going to take you 3 minutes of walking to get there. And those 3 minutes is just you and the world around you, and it's quiet. There's no fast travel. There's very little sprinting. No matter what you do, you have to face the quiet apocalypse in this game. And the quiet apocalypse in the Long Dark is arguably not the whole flare-up where the world went over and turned off and everyone died and all that stuff and you're left in this wasteland. The quiet apocalypse is really your life change, and you are in this quiet world, you know. So that the loneliness aspect is another thing that I think makes it harder for people to know what to do. Another thing is that, of course, you can play with other people. You can use the multiplayer mod. If you didn't know there is a multiplayer mod, there is one. It does require that you use time capsule to play an earlier version of it, but there is one. It's made by a user called Filigrani. And I made a video about it about 2 years ago, and it outlines how it works and all that stuff. And at the time, I said something that I now disagree with, so I changed my opinion. At the time, I said that the multiplayer mod doesn't fit the philosophy of the Long Dark. Because the Long Dark is about loneliness and isolation, and that's true. So I personally don't like playing multiplayer in the Long Dark, but at the end of the day, like I said, you can play the Long Dark however you want. And if you prefer playing the Long Dark with some friends in a multiplayer mod, who cares? That's your way of playing the game. Who can say to you that that's wrong? No one. So do it. Go play the multiplayer. That's fine. It's a mod, and that doesn't make a difference. But for me personally, I really appreciate a game where you're completely on your own. You're completely isolated. It's literally just you and the world and the elements of that world in it. And that's it. And that to me is peace, you know, not peace or a break from other people or my responsibilities in real life. They will still be there after, but it's a little relaxation. It's a little Zen moment, you know. And if I could play with other people, that'd be fine too. But it's also nice to be the boss of your own game progress. It's actually nice to not have that line, that voice that says, so you gotta do this, you gotta do that. Sometimes that happens though, if you have survival monologue on and say, oh, I gotta eat, you know, like, yeah, I know, Astrid, you know, we'll feed you, don't worry. You can turn that off. The only exception to all this is the tails. The tails that was out of the DLC, Signal Void, what was it called? Signal Void, Buried Echoes, and Last Horizon are 3 tales set in the far territory, and that actually gives you something to do. It's different because that one gives you an actual quest, and the quest tells you what to do, which is in Signal Void it requires traveling all over the place, go to here and there. The other ones is more regional. So in those ones there's an exception, but that's a very small part of the game. It's very small, and you can just not do it, of course. And if you do them, if you do all the tales, well, when you're done, you're done. You're back to the same old. There's no one to tell you what to do. So that's an exception, but it doesn't really impact the game. It would have been different if you spawned, when it spawned it said, head to Forsaken Airfield. That's your goal. You know, oh, okay. That will give you a goal to like survive and get ready to go to Forsaken Airfield. And then and then start you know, doing the tales, and then it would seem like that's the goal of the game, but it's not. It's an additional thing, and the tales don't even trigger until you pick up the radio, which by the way is a great addition to the game because it now gives you something to do, I guess, when you're out in the Aurora. So it gives you an extra thing you can do then. So yeah, the tales is an exception. Obviously Wintermute is different, but Wintermute is a story. That's the story mode of the Long Dark. So there you have to have goals because that's a story to be told, and it's told through your actions and through the characters that you meet. So Wintermute is different. Wintermute is completely different. That is, there you have multiple characters, multiple goals, multiple interactions, and that's done to tell a story set in this world. And that's a completely different thing. When we're talking about survival mode, it's something else, because here we're talking about your grasp of what it means to be alive in the winter landscape. So yeah. My coffee's getting cold. But you see how a lot of these things, it's very hard to put your finger on it with words. It really is a mental investment in the game, an immersion into what this game is about, and how you feel in the world. If you feel bored and like you need something to do, then that's no fault of your own. It's just that maybe then the philosophy of the game isn't necessarily for you, but you can still enjoy the game by playing it the way you want to play it. Because even though the game is potentially designed with isolation and loneliness in mind and complete freedom and no goals, that doesn't mean you have to play it that way, of course. You know, you play it however you want to do it, and you just approach it how you want to. And yeah, this game is famous in that it doesn't hold your hand. Even learning how to play this game is very hard because there's very few tutorials. Like story mode is kind of a tutorial. It'll tell you some basic stuff, but even the story mode neglects a lot of stuff. A lot of things you just have to find out by doing them. And even when you kind of master the game, there's all sorts of nuance to it. So this is a game that takes a long time to learn and to master, unlike some other games. And with that goes hand in hand with the freedom you have in this game. And yeah, it's just, it also works really well, I think, that it's winter and not something else, because the cold, the winter speaks isolation. Because the winter is when people go indoors more, and animals hibernate, and things shut down waiting for spring. So you're kind of caught in the worst possible time, the eternal winter. And that's, you know, it's immersive in a different way because of that, because you have the sound of the snow, you have your footprints, you have the blizzards, you have the aurora, and that it's so cold makes it very challenging, adds this extra layer to it. And I like the challenge of the long dark, and I really like Interloper because it's challenging enough that it's difficult, but not so difficult that it's irritating. If I had no health regeneration, it's less fun for me. That's why I like Misery, but not as much as Interloper. So yeah. What do you do in the long dark? You do whatever you want to do. And if you can't think of anything to do, if you are one of those people that say, no, I have to have something to do, I need a goal in order to play this game. Well, the reality is you have to set your own goals. There's no way around it. That is the way this game works. There's no one to tell you what to do. There are no goals in it. There are only necessities to survive. So you have to make your own goals. It's the only way to do it. You can ask around, ask people, what do you guys do when you reach day 100? What do you do? And some will say, oh, I do this, or I do that, or I keep myself busy doing this, and so on. I've given you many examples, but people have other examples of what they do. But in the end of the day, and you can use those, but at the end of the day, there is no one to tell you what to do. You have to decide yourself. And that's why I thought it's fitting to say it's like the meaning of life, because in life, let's be honest, the meaning or purpose of you being is really up to you to decide. Other people will suggest things to you. They'll say things like the meaning of life is some divine purpose, or the meaning of life is to have children to pass on your genes, or the meaning of life is to change the world or have some profound legacy of some sort. But those are all like imparted onto you. They are suggestions. They are not written in stone, even if people say they are. At the end of the day, you have to decide what the meaning of life is for you, if you even care about having such a thing. At the end of the day, remember, it's arbitrary. We're the ones asking that question, which means only we are the ones that can answer it. No one else can give you your answer to what the meaning of life is. And when you get into the long dark, it's sort of the same. There are no goals, so you have to create a meaning for this character to be there. And that meaning can be whatever you want. Maybe your character is just someone who likes looking at the sunset, and that's all that they like. So their meaning is to just enjoy the sunset and take a moment. Maybe you're someone who thinks it's really fun to be the wolf terminator, and you're going to try and kill 1,000 wolves in 100 days. Yeah, well, you go for that then. That's what you do. Who cares? You have to make your own plan, your own meaning, your own goals. And I can give you suggestions, other people can give you suggestions, and you can use them, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You can do whatever you want to do. And that's what makes it so liberating in the long dark. It makes it so peaceful. You are absolved of all your responsibilities in the sense that there's no one to tell you what to do, and you can just do whatever you want. It's not escape from duties, it's just a change of pace, in the sense that you are your own boss completely, and which means also your survival is in your hands completely as well. And it gives you so much freedom, so much space, and it gives you peace as well. It becomes a home. This frozen eternal winter is your home. And that's what the long dark is. It's a home. Home and freedom. And we can talk about this more. I have a video that I've been planning to make for years and never got around to, called Why the Long Dark is the Greatest Game of All Time. And part of it has to do with this, the freedom and of isolation, and just to do whatever you want. But it's more to it than that, of course. We'll do that in a different video. But yeah, I thought I'd just share my thoughts on this. This was very much winging it, because a lot of this is hard to put into words. It's just a feeling when you're in the long dark. If you have watched or listened all the way to this, then please feel free to put in the comments how you feel about the long dark. Like, what is it that keeps you going for a long run? What keeps you busy? And how do you feel when you are in the game? Do you feel a sense of immersion and you feel like you can just stay in this world? Or do you feel that there's something that's immersion breaking for you, that feels like there's something in it that you just can't get into it? And if so, what is that? You know, I always like to see what people think. Doesn't matter if you agree or disagree. If you think I'm full of nonsense or I'm full of wisdom, makes no difference. Because just like you have to make your own meaning of life, you're also entitled to your opinion about what I say. So you just say whatever you want. So yeah, that is the long dark and what you do in it. You do whatever you want to do, and no one else can tell you otherwise. No one can tell you you're playing the game wrong. And for me personally, I just love being in the world. I appreciate the world in and of itself, and I can just go out and be the world, just be in it, and I'll just do something. I'll go over here and check this place out. Maybe I need to do some hunting. Just little things. Take my time. When you have to rush in this game, it's not as much fun. It's fun to take your time where possible. And sometimes things will happen. You'll get spooked by a random wolf or something. Get lost in a blizzard. You'll die. You'll die in this game a lot. But death is just a part of it. Death is just a learning curve. But the immersion in it of itself is just wonderful. Okay, I think I've said enough. I think you can decide yourself from now on. I just thought I'd vent this little issue a little bit. And please let me know what you think. All that being said, thank you so much for watching / listening. I hope you have a great run yourself. I hope you enjoy the long dark for what it is. And if you don't enjoy it, obviously that's fine too. You're not obliged to like the game. But yeah, let me know what you think. And have a great run and have a great life. Stay awesome, survivors. I'll see you in another time.